Hello everyone and welcome back, Dace here. It's not often I come across multi-directional walking shooters that strike a chord for me, so when I found out about Pocky and Rocky Reshrined and saw how amazing it looked, I was immediately pulled in. Everything about the settings, stage design, characters, and colors looked incredibly inviting. Although previously unaware of this magical world clearly brimming with adventure and possibility around every corner, it was evident the game had roots elsewhere. I did some digging, and it wasn't long before I discovered Kiki Kaikai, the apparent predecessor that had started things off. I was delighted to see it was on Switch, and purchased it a few days later. After enjoying both single-player runs and two-player sessions with Autumn, it was obvious the game deserved some attention. We decided to tackle this review together as a precursor to Pocky and Rocky's release in April, which we're super excited to check out with all of you when it drops. With all that out of the way, let's get into this.
Kiki Kaikai, or Mysterious Ghost World, is a 1-to-2 player multi-directional walking STG developed and published by Taito in 1986. It was initially released for arcades, but eventually received home ports for the MSX, Famicom Disk System, PC Engine, and even various compilations with slight differences between the versions. On March 12, 2020, Hamster published Kiki Kaikai for the Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4 as part of their Arcade Archive series. It's worth noting that the original arcade version was never a two-player game. That change made its appearance with the release of the Famicom version. That being said, two-player games are alternating, so if you're playing with a friend, you won't be playing together simultaneously. And for those interested, there is a bootleg version known as Nightboy, which is odd since the protagonist is a young girl.
The game takes place in feudal Japan and follows the story of Sayo-chan, a Shinto shrine maiden attempting to save the 7 lucky gods who have been kidnapped. To do so, she must battle her way through monsters and spirits straight out of Japanese mythology. I found myself quite captivated by Kiki Kaikai's setting. The areas we visit are not outrageously varied, but they are infused with a fair amount of character despite the simple graphics. During the run, we explore shrine courtyards, boardwalks over a deep blue river, stone-tiled maze-like sections, and grassy areas brimming with spirits. It's been a while since I've played something that sets this sort of mood. The closest thing that comes to mind is Shikondo Soul Eater, since it has a similar theme. And something fascinating I heard at one point was that Reimu Hakurei and the ghosts from the Toho Project games were inspired by Sayo-chan and ghost enemies in Kiki Kaikai.
The game plays out over 7 stages, or scenes as they're called, and each one ends with a boss fight. Kiki Kaikai does not scroll automatically like other shooters, but instead the player is free to roam each stage as they see fit. Because of this, the run's duration will vary from player to player, but on average, the game can be cleared in about 20 minutes if you know what you're doing and aren't constantly losing lives and needing to start over. Sayo-chan has 2 weapons at her disposal: the Purification Rod, a melee weapon for knocking enemies away if they get too close, and the Ofuda or Talisman scrolls, which are her projectiles. These two work wonderfully together because there are plenty of times when you'll be absolutely swamped with enemies coming at you from all angles.
Kiki Kaikai dishes out a variety of interesting foes, all possessing unique behavior. Some are not affected by the Purification Rod and must be shot down. Other enemies will rush and cling to you, slowing your movement speed considerably. If you are possessed, you can touch a lantern or walk under a Shinto shrine archway to cleanse yourself. Some foes come in the form of wind spirits which travel a particular weaving path along the screen, but the list goes on. It can be pretty intense juggling the enemies. There may be situations where a gravestone at the top of the screen will rush down once you cross its path, but you also know you need to make a mad dash because jumping fish with legs are coming at you from behind, and ghosts are firing shots from in front and closing in on you. Meanwhile, countless red enemies are coming to slow you down.
On top of that, players must ensure Sayo-chan doesn't fall into a crevice or river, since this will cost you a life. Boardwalks are especially dangerous since you still need to aim, and sometimes you'll be on a walkway that is a single tile's width, and aiming means moving your character in the desired direction, so it's risky. If you sit for too long, enemies will come to you, so even if you want to stop for a breather after a boss fight, you won't have more than a second or two before you're under attack again.
During the final fight, the boss morphs between a tanuki and an evil version of Sayo-chan. At first I thought the tanuki might actually be Rocky from Pocky and Rocky, but the tail is different, so it likely isn't our furry friend. After defeating the 7th boss and saving the final lucky god, you'll need to make it through an intense enemy-filled area and return the gods to their wooden ship. From what I could tell, scrolls must be found to unlock the door to this final area. This means you'll need to whack statues until you find them all, and with enemies closing in, it can feel frantic.
Throughout the run, you'll discover numerous items, including talismans, keys, crystal balls, extra lives in the form of purification rods, and even rice balls, which add to your score. Each stage has a single golden key, which must be obtained to unlock the boss's chamber. Otherwise, you'll need to backtrack, which increases the risk of your potential demise. There are blue and yellow crystal balls, which are essentially used like bombs. The blue crystal ball freezes enemies on screen for 8 seconds, and the yellow crystal ball destroys enemies outright. Both attack buttons must be pressed simultaneously to use a crystal ball. As for the talismans, we have blue, yellow, red, and double. Collecting blue increases your attack range. The yellow talisman increases the size of your projectiles, whereas the red gives your shots a penetrating quality, and the double talisman increases the shot speed. As for scoring, we didn't notice any sort of in-depth system here. You more or less kill enemies and collect rice balls, which is fine because things get so wild most people will be more focused on surviving than anything else. The game includes high-scoring caravan modes, and both Japanese and English versions of the game.
While Kiki Kaikai has a fairly limited soundtrack consisting of only 4 songs, I found the music memorable, and it perfectly captured the game's rich theme. A single track plays throughout all 7 stages, and each boss encounter shares the same fight theme. The sound effects aren't anything out of the ordinary, but some highlights stood out for me. One example is the sound used when the Stage 1 boss throws nuts by the handful. Another is heard when the head extends out from the small shrine with the long neck. In conclusion, Kiki Kaikai delivers a frantic, action-packed adventure that will have you wildly waving a rod and flinging pieces of paper like an absolute maniac. I'm not kidding when I say sections can be very overwhelming.
We get a unique setting with loads of strange yet fascinating enemies, cool bosses, and a charming female protagonist to polish things off. Even days or weeks after playing, the music and sounds are memorable, and I really enjoyed jumping into this relic from 1986. It's neat seeing the similarities between Kiki Kaikai and screenshots of Pocky and Rocky reshrined. We're super excited knowing we'll be able to enjoy 2-player runs cooperatively when it drops, and we're trusting there are no delays.
Anyway, that's where we're leaving off for now. In the comments, let us know if you've ever played Kiki Kaikai or Pocky and Rocky, and what you enjoyed about them. If you're looking forward to Pocky and Rocky Reshrined, drop that below too. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider flinging a like our way and click that subscribe button to keep your days STG infused. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.